Hey guys, welcome everyone to Twilight. We hope you enjoy our videos. If there's anything in the video that you don't like or if you have any concerns, please let us know in the comment section. Let's keep the conversation going, but for now, let's head towards the video. What if Bella returned as the goddess of death and wine? Wife of death wine. Bella sighs. This was so boring watching these vampires day in and day out. She could be doing more important things with her time. Confused. Well, she was not actually Bella Swan. Bella Swan never existed. And was created by the mist. Bella was actually Lady Neve, daughter of Apollo and Athena. Goddess of life, brightness, melodies, guidance, advice, foreknowledge, foresight, sight, destinies, future, premonition, paths, crossroads, balance, fairness, fate, counsel, warning, battle lines, intelligence, strategic planning, guidance, meaning, immortality, crafting, marksmanship, heroes, and quests. Fate controller and chief advisor to the Olympian Council. She was made after her father and mother had a very drunken night. But her mother didn't conceive her, just made her into existence like she did with all her children. She was her mother's prodigy. With her gifts, her grandfather made her chief advisor to the Olympian Council. She had his ear, and he trusted her completely. But he still sent her on this mission to see what these vampires were really like, as they were created by Aphrodite and Hades after their drunken night. Yes, many things happened after drunken nights. You wouldn't believe how many children or things were created after getting completely wasted on Olympian grade alcohol or Dionysus brewed alcohol. So Neve came into existence. And she became one of the favorites among the gods. As she really didn't pick fights but helped fix them. She met her beloved husband Thanatos when she was given her domains. She had seen him with them, and that basically sealed the deal. They were married within months and have been happily married since. Even with them both having so-called affairs. They weren't affairs to them, they were just a way to let off steam and some lust or have a little bit of fun. Or for Neve, with Thanatos being so busy, she needed to get some attention somewhere. There was no fighting between them about the affairs or the demigod children that were produced from these hookups. As they both knew they would come back to each other in the end. But right now was the most bored Neve has ever been. And that was saying something. She wanted out off here and back among her own kind. As these vampires were too controlling for her taste or anyone's taste. She felt sorry for Jasper through with his midget pixie bitch controlling wife. Controlling everything he did or what he wore. She had half a mind to help Jasper get away from her. And back to the days when he was Major Whitlock, the god of war. Now that was a man that many respected, including several gods. Which included Ares, surprisingly enough. So she had subtly been giving advice and guidance to Jasper in hopes he would take it and leave these controlling assholes. As Jasper, she sensed, were on a crossroads in his supposable immortal life. "Granddaughter, I need you to return," a voice in her head says. Neve was so excited. Yes. She was out off here. And this couldn't come at a better time than the controlling vampires being gone hunting but Esme. And she could quickly and easily get away from her. "On my way, grandfather," she replies. She gets up off her seat in Edward's room and smirks at the doorway. Esme wouldn't know she had left until it was too late, and by then she would be back on Olympus. She flashes away to Charlie's house. She felt bad to make this kind-hearted mortal think she was his daughter. But she saw he was the best choice. As he was always away at work or fishing, she could get away with what she needed to do this way. She knocks on the door. Charlie opens it and looks at her confused. "There was never a Bella Swan. She never existed, and you will go about your life as you have always done before. You will have no memory of a Bella Swan or having a daughter or an ex-wife," Neve says softly, using the mist to change his life again. He goes into a trance. And Neve snaps her fingers and things return to what they were in his house. Then she waves her hands and she wipes Bella Swan's existence from Forks and the surrounding areas. She knew it wouldn't work on vampires or other supernaturals. But it will confuse them, and hopefully they would think it was their imagination. Yeah, right, that wouldn't happen. According to her domains. Damn, she hoped they wouldn't cause too much unbalance. She hated things not being in balance. She turns back to Charlie and weaves his fate into a happy ending. He would marry and have children and grow old with them. This was her gift for him for unknowingly taking her in. "Be well, Charles Jeffrey Swan. As you will find your happily ever after," Neve says softly as he turns around in a daze and shuts the door. Neve smiles, happy she could help such a kind-hearted person as Charlie. Now she had to go. "Goodbye, Forks," Neve says, smirking at the thought of the frantic vampires that would soon know she was gone. Neve flashes out of Forks and lands in the middle of Olympus in her true form. Her true form was 58 and had golden blonde hair that was plaited down to her waist. Her eyes with gray gold. Her skin nicely tanned, flawless and unblemished. She was wearing a light blue Greek-styled sundress with gold-heeled sandals. Jewelry of gold and silver with black diamonds sparkled around her neck, wrists and on her fingers. In a necklace, bangles and rings including wedding and eternity rings. She walks to the Hall of Gods. Minor gods and natural spirits welcoming her back happily. She greets them all the same. She enters the hall to only find her grandfather there waiting for her. "My lord," Neve says formally bowing to him. "Lady Neve, I am sorry to call you back." "I am not sorry my lord. As it was very dull work that tested even my patience," Neve replies. Everyone knew she had the most patience out of about everyone but Hestia and Harmonia. "Should we expect trouble?" Zeus asks. "Maybe my lord, as they are very possessive and controlling." Neve reveals to him what had happened in Forks and she saw her grandfather look thoughtful. "We will revisit this if this becomes a problem. We will keep an eye on the situation," Zeus decides. "As you wish my lord." "Why did you call me back?" Neve asks curious. "Let's go to my office," Zeus orders. They immediately flash to Zeus' office in his temple. "Take a seat granddaughter and we can drop the titles," Zeus says gesturing to a seat. Neve could see the piles of paperwork all over his desk. "You need to be more organized grandfather," Neve chides him, like only she could get away with. "More work is piling up after the last 2 wars. Hades has the same problem with everyone that has died," Zeus replies sighing. "What have you called me for advice for?" Neve asks as she didn't want to rely on her gifts. "I want to make sure the traitor situation we have had with gods and demigods is unlikely to happen again," Zeus replies. "And you want me to advise you on how to achieve that?" Neve asks knowingly. "Yes, I have a rough idea thanks to," Zeus looked reluctant to go on. "Thanks to," Neve coaxes. "Perseus Jackson," Zeus grumbles. Neve struggles not to laugh. She could idea how hard that was for Zeus to admit his brother's son was doing the things he should be doing. "He has requested that Hestia and Hades regain their places on council," Zeus reveals to her. "So you would like me to add to it?" Neve asks. "Yes," Zeus replies. "Perseus' idea is right but I would expand it. Now Greeks and Romans are revealed to each other, the council must have balance. I suggest adding Bellona, Janus, Cupid, Honos, Virtus, Justitia and Libertus to the council for the Romans. While adding Hecate, Nemesis, Triton, Macaria, Harmonia, Elias, Irene, Asclepius, Epione, Dike, Astraea, Eunomia, Boreas, Persephone and Amphitrite and my husband to the Greek side. It will bring a better balance and accord among the council. As the council would just be made up with your children," Neve advises him. "What do you mean?" Zeus asks in denial. Neve sighs. It was time for a reality check. "My lord, you have Athena, Apollo, Artemis, Ares, Hermes, Hephaestus, Dionysus are all your children. Your brothers have none of their children on council. Does that honestly seem fair?" Neve asks rhetorically. "No," Zeus admits. "So at least add Triton and Macaria to the council. So at least your brothers can see you're trying to change. Triton is Poseidon's godly heir, so he is a good choice. And Macaria is the most stable of Hades' godly children," Neve explains her choices. "And the others?" Zeus asks. "Justitia, Dike, Eunomia and Astraea are all justice goddesses. Boreas will represent the wind gods as they have never had a voice before. Hecate is a powerful ally to have as she controls the mist. Cupid is a immortal child of Aphrodite and Ares. Nemesis is a goddess of balance just like I am. Harmonia, Irene, Elias, Asclepius, Epione are all peaceful gods. And as you, Aphrodite, and Hephaestus have your spouses on council, it is only fair that your brothers have the same. And if they want, it should spread to Demeter and Dionysus, the other 2 with spouses," Neve explains patiently. "And Thanatos?" Zeus asks. Neve sighs. "My husband is a death god, which means he is neutral. A good balance and addition to have." Zeus thinks about it and his granddaughter was right. "Your advice will be heeded. What else can I do to prevent traitors from both sides in the future?" "What do you mean Bella is missing?" Edward yells into the phone. "Don't shout at me, young man. She was in your room. I only left her to rest, then I checked an hour later and she is gone," Esme replies. "Is there another scent there?" Carlyle asks with a calming hand on Edward's shoulder. Like Laurent or even worse Victoria, Jasper butts him, getting glares from Edward and Alice. "There is no other scent than Bella's, and a slightly more appealing scent," Esme replies. "We are on our way back," Edward says. Rosalie rolls her eyes, sure the human disappears and you all run right back. Probably just what she wants. Did you call Charlie? Carlisle asks as they run. That is the strange thing, he doesn't even remember a Bella. He said he never heard that name and he doesn't have a daughter or an ex-wife, Esme replies upset. Alice, can you see anything? Edward asks his sister. You know I can't, Edward. You have seen in my head that I only see darkness, like she doesn't exist, Alice replies testily. Her best friend was missing. He should know she would try everything to find her. Sorry, Alice, but Bella is so fragile. And anything could have happened to her without me to protect her. Edward exclaims after hearing her thoughts. We will find her, Eddie. Lil sis will be fine. She probably has just gone to the beach to the mutts, Emmett says, trying to cheer Edward up. Edward growls, don't say that. She would never hang around with those mutts. And it doesn't explain why Charlie doesn't know who she is. Could it be the Volturi? Alice asks. Carlisle frowns. I haven't heard of any guard having these types of powers. Hopefully they hadn't found someone who could do this. Otherwise we will be hard-pressed to get her back. Don't say that, Edward snarls. I will get my Bella back. Just you watch me. Hang on, my love. I am coming. I will save you. Neve had advised her grandfather on what he needed to do. He thanked her and gave her the next 2 days off to spend with her husband or with whatever she deemed appropriate. She really wanted to see her Thanatos after being parted for many months. So she went to her temple first. She made sure she did herself up as sexy as possible. After all, it had been a long time for her. But first a call to her favorite granduncle. Iris, put me through to Hades please, Neve says, making a rainbow. At once, Lady Neve, and welcome back, Iris says. Thank you, Neve replies. Soon she could see Hades at his desking grumbling about Karen's Italian suits again. Lord Hades, Neve says. He spins around to see his counterpart, her being life and he wife of his lieutenant in the Iris message. When did she get back? Neve, I didn't know you were back. Thanatos didn't tell me, Hades says. He doesn't know, my lord. I want to make his night tonight. If you catch my meaning, Neve replies with a sly wink. Hades chuckles, I take it you want me to give him the night off. That and the next day too, please. We have a lot to catch up on, Neve replies, smirking. What possible could you mean? Well, I was stuck with a controlling Amuvirgan bastard of a vampire who doesn't know what women want this century, and his pixie midget bitch of a sister dressing me up at every turn like I was her own personal Barbie doll. And the rest of his controlling sparkly ass family. I think, my lord, I have earned a night and day with my husband, Neve rants, eyes narrowing at Hades, and it is all thanks to you and Aphrodite for creating the miserable lot. Not counting the controlling shapeshifters of Harris. I should arrange a surprise for them in their future. Hades' eyes widen hearing her rant. Well, that was new. Hades coughs, trying not to think on the facts that Neve just told him. Well, take the next 2 days off. It sounds like you deserve it, Hades tells her. With slight fear in his voice. For the Lord of Hell, he was scared easily. It was well known not to mess with the goddess of destinies, future and fate. That could change your fate and so on with a snap of her fingers. Thank you for your cooperation, Neve says sweetly and cuts the Iris message off. As soon as she cuts it off, she bursts out laughing. It works every time, she chuckles. Neve finishes getting ready. Her evening dress was a deep blue. It was a knight's beaded mesh column gown that went down to just above her ankles. The beads twinkled like stars trailing across and down the dress. It had short sleeves and had a v-neck. She put on 5-inch black heels sparkled with silver beads. She had on her jewelry that her husband gave her, with a hanging gold diamond earrings on the bottom hole, diamond hoops in the middle and golden stubs that were the symbol of fate. The makeup on to bring out her eyes. And her favorite lipstick. When Neve looked in the mirror, she looked smoking hot. And she hoped Thanatos would say the same. Oh, I am going to knock his socks off, Neve chuckles. So she grabbed a few things and teleported to the underworld. She was one of the few that had a blanket permission to come and go to the underworld as she pleased. She walked through her husband's office and dismissed the secretary, giving her some galleons for her to have the next few days off. Neve could already hear her husband's grumbling from here. Well, it was time to give him a great surprise. Thanatos wasn't happy. He was overworked and frustrated. His wife had been on a mission for about 2 years. And he hadn't been able to see her. Gods, he missed her. But it still looked like she would be away for a while longer. His affairs could only give him so much release. Now he wanted to hurt Karen, as Karen was taking his complaints to him. Karen and his bloody Italian suits. Who the fuck does he think he is? Thanatos mutters. Language, my love, a voice says. Thanatos knew that voice. But she wasn't due back. He looked up sharply and saw his beloved wife, and boy did she look hot. Neve, Thanatos says, his voice changing from frustration to love. Hello my heart, Neve says in her musical voice. Hello my love, I didn't expect you to be here, Thanatos replies. I can tell. Why don't you take a break, Neve suggests. I have, Thanatos starts, but he did want to greet his wife properly. But Neve comes over and pulls him up and kisses him passionately. He responds in kind and then brings her into his arms. It felt so good to both of them to be in each other's arms again. My love, you look amazing. Date, Thanatos asks, a bit jealous. You could say that, with this amazing husband who hadn't taken a break in 2 years. Who should give his sexual frustrated wife a good night as she will give her sexually frustrated husband the same, Neve purrs. I have work, I even got specially dressed for the night and I have a present for you to unwrap, she purrs. Thanatos' eyes widen as he takes her in. And you should take advantage of the fact your wife is very, very sexually frustrated, Neve advises him. Starting to pull his black clothes off. Oh, I think I can fix that, Thanatos says, growls in lust. You better. Edward arrived back to Forks and he was worried when he couldn't find Bella's scent. He went to the mutts but Jacob hadn't seen her but was willing to help find her. Edward knew Jacob was only helping because of his crush on Bella. But for the sake of Bella's safety and life he would put up with Jacob in order to find her. They arrived at Charlie's house and they rang the doorbell. Charlie's answers within a minute. Can I help you, Mr. Cullen? Jacob, Charlie asks. We are here about Bella, sir, Edward says politely. He read Charlie's mind and there didn't seem to be any memories of Bella. I told Mrs. Cullen I have never heard of this Bella, Charlie replies, his eyes narrowing. Charlie, she is your daughter, Jacob tells him, worried about Charlie's sanity. I don't have a daughter. Never have, Charlie replies. Bella has lived with you for about 2 years now, Edward informs him. I don't know what you boys are smoking but you should quit. As nobody lives here but me, Charlie replies. But Charlie, Jacob starts. Fine, come in and look, I can guarantee you that there is no Bella or Bella Swan here, Charlie replies. Letting them in, Edward tries to keep to human speed as he searches the house. There wasn't any pictures of Bella. Childhood or otherwise, no things that belonged to her. And when he got up to her room it was full of guns in cases. No, Edward says as he looks around for any sign of Bella. Jacob too looks around, but there wasn't even a trace of her scent in the room they knew had been hers. Satisfied, Charlie asks. Edward goes into every room but there was nothing to be found. Not a hair or a speck of blood that belonged to Bella. Done here, Charlie says, growing impatient. No, there must be something, Edward starts. There has to be, Jacob says too. Enough, out of my house the pair of you, Charlie yells at them. But this isn't right, Charlie, she is your daughter, Edward says, trying to reason with him. We grow up together, Charlie, Jacob states. You both been smoking too much. So I will be calling Dr. Cullen and Billy to let them know of your actions and activities. Hopefully both can sort the pair of you out, Charlie says. But sir, something is seriously wrong, Edward protests. I take it you're refusing to leave, both of you, Charlie asks. We can't leave till we find out what happened to Bella, Jacob replies. As she is the love of my life I must protect her, Edward adds. Then I have no choice. Hands behind your backs, you're under arrest. It was a few days of pure bliss to Neve as she and her beloved husband spent a few days catching up. Both of them needed to work out their frustration, which had led to them breaking a lot of furniture. But they knew they had to get back to work. Thanatos had the death paperwork to do and maybe reaper a few souls, and he had a meeting with Hades, and Neve has to go to Olympus as Zeus wanted more advice and she was going to try and see her parents. She kissed Thanatos passionately. See you later, my heart, Neve says to him. Have a good day, my love. Maybe tonight we can pick up where we left off, he asks her, kissing her collarbone. She moans, really wanting to stay here and have more time together. But Zeus, fuck it. She spins around and kisses him passionately and they end up back in their bed for an hour. Before a giggling Neve starts to get dressed again. Zeus and Hades are going to be pissed, Neve giggles, fixing her messy sex hair. Well, it is your fault being so sex, he says huskily, kissing her collarbone again as she puts her necklace on. She swats his hand away. Again, my heart, you know that is what started us off and now we are both late, Neve tells him, turning her head to look in his eyes with her gold gray eyes. Well, Neve kisses him, till tonight, my heart. And she flashes out before Thanatos could get her back to his bed. Neve was on a high as she made her way to her grandfather's office. The last few days had been what she needed to get rid of all the frustration and anger she had at the Cullens out. The downside was they would need to buy new furniture. She shrugs, it was a small price to pay for making it so they didn't blow up in anger. Neve at the Cullens and Thanatos at Karen. Neve knocks on her grandfather's office. "Come in," he calls. Neve goes in looking much calmer than she did a few days ago. He looks at her, raising his eyebrow. "You're late," he tells her. She laughs. "I think you know why." "Yes, I do. I believe you have love bits on your neck," Zeus points out, amused. "Do I?" Neve asks, not worried. "I am not worried about them," she shrugs. "At least they can tell he is mine." Zeus just shakes his head. "Why don't we get onto this council plans? Have you changed anything?" Neve takes a seat next to him and looks at the documents. She hums at the list of new council members. "These are good, but we forgot Carmener, Ariadne, Psyche, Orothia and maybe Despoina," Neve says to him, writing the names down. Zeus hums, "Good ideas. The spouses of Demeter, Dionysus, Boreas and Cupid." "Despoina," he choirs. "I thought one about adding another child of your brother's to the council, and if Hades did, I would have," Neve tells him. "What about Melino?" Zeus asks, as Melino was Hades' daughter too. She shakes her head. "Melino is not exactly stable. I can see it disturbing us." "Very well, I trust you," Zeus says to her. "What about Hercules?" "Absolutely not," Neve says sharply. "He is a sexist pig and I can see him being more of a problem than Melino, and that is because Artemis will kill him eventually for advances made towards her, and then Dad gets involved." "You get the idea, grandfather." Zeus winces and nods. "Yeah, not a good idea," he agrees. "I will alone Enyo in because she is Ares' twin. But tell her it is a trial base if she can prove she can control herself," Neve says, giving in to Enyo. She had to admit it would be far. Her dad and his twin were on council. So, Ares' twin should be on it, causing a bit more balance. "And we will add Acesso as she is neutral, Hercilia as she is Roman, and Sancus for Romans too, but also because he is the god of loyalty, oaths and honesty, and I think for the last one it should be Styx," Neve tells him. "Styx?" Zeus asks, alarmed. "I get the other three. But her? She is the goddess of oaths and one of the most important rivers of the underworld. Having her here will make sure her ties stay strong to Olympus," Neve explains patiently. "Very well," Zeus nods, "and it might help us gain back her trust too." "I agree with that. I think now we have our extra council members. What else do you want to do?" Neve asks as she writes notes. "What do you think? How about freeing Leto, Métis and Maya?" Neve suggest, not to mention Calypso and the other peaceful titans. None of them deserve to be separated from their loved ones. I will have them free by the summer solstice. Would you come with me to explain?" "Very well," Neve agrees. "What else do you think should be done?" Zeus blushes and mutters something. "I didn't hear that, grandfather. I think even though I loathe to admit it, I am going to have to apologize to Hades for everything," he says, blushing. Neve's eyebrow had gone into her hairline. "Well, that was interesting. What brought this on?" she asks. "If our kids can get along, why can't we?" Zeus asks her. "Good point. I think some feuds need to be sorted out. Poseidon and Athena as well. As Aphrodite's love triangle she has going on, she should just let Hephaestus get a divorce and let him go on with his life. Also, Aphrodite interference with Artemis hunt needs to be resolved, and the thousands of years argument between Hades and Demeter is causing more strife as the years pass, and your constant need to accuse your brothers of everything and to blame them for every little thing that has happened and dismissing their ideas." Neve advises him. Zeus rubs his eyes. "Yes, they are problems that need to be sorted. We are going to have to do something to get them together to talk, get Auntie Hestia and I to referee with them. We put you in rooms and make sure they can't get out without Hestia and his agreement, and they have sorted these problems out. A house divided can't stand, grandfather. It will eventually fall," Neve reminds him. "Agreed. We will do as you advise. But Aphrodite's issue with the hunters will also be brought up at the council so they know they are not to help her in her silly schemes for them," Zeus replies, "and if they get any hints she had done something, then to bring it straight to me." "Deal. Also, you have to deal with Dionysus," Neve says to him. "What about him? He is completely out of control. He is making the campers feel unwanted. His little tantrum has gone on long enough. It needs to be dealt with. I believe some of his attitude contributed to the traitors in the Second Titan War," Neve informs him. "Damn, I forgot about that. Yes, that will be dealt with. Dionysus is taking this too far." Zeus agrees. "We will have to do something to get him to change, if not I will have to find another punishment." Like maybe mortal form until he has learned his lesson. Neve smirks. I might not be against that like I normally would be when it comes to him and his childish tantrum. He reminds me of some of the Cullens. Really, Zeus asks her. Oh yeah, if Alice, Edward, Rosalie can't get their own way, things get unhappy. I feel sorry for Jasper, Alice's husband, and Emmett, Rosalie's. I need to talk to Aphrodite about that. I don't believe Jasper and Alice as well as Emmett and Rosalie are true mates, Neve says, writing herself a note. You're concerned about them. Only Emmett and Jasper. They have been good to me, and if I can repay their kindness I will, Neve replies firmly. It was true. Emmett and Jasper treated her like a person and not a china doll. So, she would help them if she could. And the other two, Zeus asks. Neve snorts. They might say they don't have favorites, but it is clear that at least Edward and Alice are. Those two can get away with murder and Carlisle won't be angry, and if the others did it, he would be. That family is mucked up. And ours isn't, Neve asks him, amused. For goodness sake, I heard about Hephaestus traps for Aphrodite and Ares and broadcasting them a Hephaestus TV. Dad's needs to put beats on things. Mum's baby making situation and superiority complex. Dionysus tantrums. Poseidon's needs to get one up on Mum. Artemis needs to pull out her knives and throwing them at Dad when he is joking. Hades getting along more with the dead than us. He is completely antisocial. Something we need to fix, by the way. Hera's horrible mother instincts and her letting Ares getting away with murder. She lets him manipulate her and doesn't let you punish him, for the lightning bolt and helm fiasco for one. Hermes stealing and pranks with Dad that left the Hades palace pink. Should I go on as it is? Hestia is the only normal one in the bunch and half the time you all forget she is there. Zeus groans. I get it. Good, Neve replies. Can we move on? Zeus asks. All right, you need in Camp Jupiter to build proper shrines to the other gods. For goodness sake, look at Poseidon's. Neve points out, why don't you hire my half-sister to be the architect for the project? He nods. That I can admit should have been done some time ago. You have been neglecting the Romans. No wonder Octavian did what he did. You need to treat them better like the Greeks. That I am sure you also will be treating better. I will, Neve. I am changing the law. Which one? The one of us not interacting with our kids. Neve sighs. What a long morning. But she was so surprised by Zeus' change. Maybe she should get her dad to look him over. Because this thoughtful Zeus wasn't like him. But if they could pull this off, Neve can see the benefits this will have on everyone, even the mortal world. But all the preparations will be tiring as they only had 2 weeks to the summer solstice, and the ideas and everything else will need to be put into place then. She needed a break and wanted to see her dad. She looks with her powers and sees him in his temple playing his piano. She sneaks into his temple. Being his daughter made her able to enter, and the fact she was one of his favorite daughters helped too. She heard a slow and sad song being played. Neve frowns. Something must have happened. She wants to cheer him so she quietly comes up behind him and hugs him and puts her chin on his shoulder. He tenses for a minute. Hello, Daddy. She felt him relax and she was in his arms before she could even blink. Bella hated that she had to check out the Cullens and the wolf pack that lived not far. Bella was not who everyone thought she was. She was not Charlie Swan's daughter. She wasn't even human. She was an immortal goddess named Dalia. Daughter of Hades, Erebus and Nyx. Goddess of night sky, stars, constellations, galaxies, the cosmos, comets, asteroids, meteors, black holes, wormholes, supernovas, shadows, heroes, weapons, combat, quests, shields, counsel, suggestions, advice, authority, curses, darkness, immortality, swordsmanship, marksmanship, destinies, fate, paths, balance, challenges, rewards, worthy, vampires, supernatural, heroes. Member of the Olympian Council. Fate controller. Chief advisor to the Olympian Council. One of the most important members of council. She had Zeus' ear. And as she was the goddess of vampires and the supernatural, it was her job to check on vampire covens or supernatural creatures every few centuries. And the Cullens were some of the worst she had come across. They treated her like a porcelain doll and a dress-up doll. And Edward and Alice were so controlling. They wouldn't let her do a thing for herself. They won't even let her choose her own clothing. The only Cullens she could stand was Jasper and Emmett. But she didn't consider Jasper a true Cullen. She didn't know how Jasper put up with Alice. As she could tell even without being the goddess of love that Alice was not Jasper's soulmate. The other thing about the Cullens were they were all in fact demigods. And they didn't even know it. She could tell some of them were actually godlings. Children of two gods. Now the other side to this supernatural check was the werewolves of Olympus. Well, shapeshifters would be the more accurate word, as those wolves were nothing like werewolves. She couldn't stand most of them. Especially Jacob Black, who thought he was in love with her. He treated her just like a China doll too. She liked the imprints Emily and Kim. But that was because they were her daughters. But they kept it a secret from their imprints and the pack. They understood the need for secrecy about the divine world. Bella couldn't stand Edward saying she was his. She was glad when he left for a while. But he just had to come back. Now wanting to marry her. She so wished she could tell him she was already married. She had married many thousands of years ago. She loved her husband from the moment she saw him in the council room asking for a seat on council. As the goddess of destinies, she knew they were meant to be together. And knew he was meant to be on council. It was her word that got him on council. His name was Dionysus. Many thought he was drunk, rude, and just didn't care about anyone. But he was actually so sweet and loving to her. Even though they both had demigod children, they still loved each other. They knew immortal love was stronger than any feelings they could ever have for mortals. The feelings towards mortals was lust, not love. And they knew they would always come back to the other in the end. So they didn't get jealous when the other had affairs. She was actually famous for having many affairs and producing so many demigod children, both Greek and Roman. Today she finally decided she had been here long enough. And the fact she really missed her husband. Even though he was being punished at Camp Halfblood, she was sure she could persuade Zeus to let her join her husband. After all, now that Kronos and Gaia had been dealt with, who knows who next will pop up her domains where telling her something was going to happen. It just seemed like it was this century that everything was going to happen. She felt so sorry for all the demigods that have now fought 2 wars in the span of just 2 years. With very little reward. She was going to do something about that. She had many ideas. She had to do something with her mind to keep herself sane this last year. Vampires used 80% of their brains, but gods used 120% of their brains. So she was doing multiple things with her mind while doing her torture with the Cullens and wolves. Now she decided her check was complete and it was time to leave. She missed her family. She missed her children, both immortal and demigod. She missed her husband most of all. So now the emo vampire was out hunting with his family, and Alice was meant to be coming over within the next hour. Now was the time to quickly leave. She walked down the stairs and saw Charlie in his chair. "Charles, my time here has come to an end," Bella tells him. He stands up and bows. Charlie was the demigod son of Athena and a legacy of Apollo. "It was a pleasure housing you, my lady," Charlie replies. "For your service you have earned a reward. When you have decided your reward, Iris, message me and I will grant it. But it has to be responsible. But at this time you also have received my blessing," Bella tells him, and with that Charlie glows black, silver, gold and teal. "Thank you, Lady Dalia," Charlie replies, "but I don't need a reward. It was truly an honor. You just made me believe you deserve a reward all the more. Think on it. Now about the vampires and wolves, your mind is shielded from Edward as you're a demigod. I believe as a son of Athena you will come up with a plan to throw the vampires and wolves off my scent," Bella states. "I do. I will have them running in circles, my lady. I have wanted to do this for a while," Charlie chuckles. Bella laughs, "Then have fun. Goodbye, cousin. Be well, live safe." "I will, my lady," Charlie replies, smiling. Bella smiles and kisses Charlie's cheek, which causes him to blush. She laughs at his embarrassment. "Alice will be here in 45 minutes, Bella warns him. "Thank for the heads up," Charlie replies. Bella smiles and flashes away from Forks, away from the wolves, and away from the controlling emo vampire and the midget bitch. She lands in her temple on Olympus. She sighed, it felt good to be home. She snapped her fingers and changed from her alias Bella Swan to Lady Dalia. Her appearance changed. Her mahogany hair changed to midnight black with teal, silver and gold stripes in it, flowing down her back with half of it pinned up. Her skin became as pale as a vampire's and completely flawless, that even vampires couldn't achieve. Her eyes were bright silver, blue and black with gold and teal flecks. That, according to Dionysus, you could see the cosmos in. Thick long black eyelashes flecked with silver were around her eyes. She was wearing a long black dress decorated in stars and constellations, with a midnight blue and gold sash wrapped around her waist. Wearing black with silver flex-heeled sandals. Greek-style bangles made of gold and silver were on her wrists that had sapphires, black diamonds and topaz stones on them. A sapphire and black diamond necklace hung from her neck. Rings sat on her fingers including her promise, engagement, wedding and eternity rings on her wedding finger. This her true form was nothing like her plain alias form of Bella Swan. How she stayed in that form for so long she would never know. Why again in that form did she decide to be clumsy because she was more gracefully than a vampire? She smirked in her mirror. Watch out Olympus. Lady Dalia the goddess of night and destinies was back and she was finally going to be making those important changes she had seen would be needed for millennia would now be able to come fully into play. Now she needed to hunt down Zeus. To announce that she was back and to begin to weave the changes that would be needed for Olympus to survive. Edward didn't want to leave Bella. But he needed to hunt and his family wanted to spend some time with him. He only agreed if Alice stayed behind to take care and look after Bella. But he still wanted this over with quickly. So he could be sure she was safe and not with those mutts. Come on Eddie, wrestle with me. Emmett booms. Don't call me Eddie, Edward growls. Then come and stop me then Eddie, Virgin Eddie, 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 come get that sexual frustration you, Emmett sings. Edward growls and launches himself at Emmett in a tackle. They wrestle with Carlisle, Esme, Rosalie, and Jasper laughing. Suddenly he hears his phone ringing and it kept ringing. Edward lets Emmett go and checks his phone to see it was Alice. Edward has a feeling of dread. What had Alice seen? Was Bella okay? He snaps his phone open answering it. Alice, is Bella okay? Edward rushes out. She is gone Edward. Alice rushes out. What do you mean gone? Edward growls angrily and panicky. He felt Jasper trying to calm him down. But he was too panicked. He had already started running back to Forks with his family trying to keep up with him. Just that gone. Charlie said Bella has gone on holiday. But she wouldn't leave without telling us. Or without us. Alice rushes out. Where is she? Alice Edward asks. I can't see her Edward. Alice says panicky. What about her truck? Edward asks. It is still here. Charlie said she had another mode of transportation, Alice replies. Track her scent then Alice. Edward snaps. Don't snap at me Edward. And I can't smell a fresh trail outside of her house, Alice replies growling slightly. Is she with the mutts? Edward asks growling. Charlie said no, but I think it is a possibility. You know Charlie really doesn't like you so he could be lying, Alice replies. Met me at the treaty line. We are going to talk to the mutts, Edward orders. What if she is not there? Alice asks. Then we have no choice but to see if the dogs can help us. After all the mutt black is one of her closet friends, Edward replies angrily. Hurry Edward, we need to find her, Alice replies. I know, she is in danger, Edward replies snapping his phone shut. It will be okay Edward, Esme says as they run. We will find Bella, Carlisle adds. And kick ass of the people who took her, Emmett adds. What if she did leave under her own free will? Jasper asks. He had felt some of Bella's emotions and knew she was not happy with Edward and Alice. And to tell the truth he wasn't happy with them either. What they were doing to Bella wasn't normal. Rosalie was silently agreeing with Jasper. Which made Edward growl. She would never leave me. Now let's hurry. The longer we are gone the fairer away her kidnappers would have taken her. Edward made a silent vow he was going to find Bella and kill those who dared take her from him. Because she wouldn't leave under her own free will. So he silently promised Bella he would find her. He had to. For her sake. And for his. Lady Dalia made one last check in the mirror to make sure she looked her best and then looked around her temple. It appeared to be in good shape. Maybe she could do some spring cleaning when she had time. She sat down for an hour gathering all her intel from her powers and from some of her servants' reports. She would need this informant to go to Zeus. But now she had more knowledge about what was going on the last 2 years. She would need to find Zeus and convince him of the changes need to be made and then surprise her husband at Camp Halfblood. Lucky Zeus liked her. And she was the goddess of heroes, quests and combat, and that made her able to interfere with demigods. She walks out of her temple and through the streets of Olympus. The daughter of Athena had truly done a good job on the rebuilding. Lady Dalia hides a smirk as she watched people bow before her and more away. They also looked at her in shock. At seeing her here for the first time in nearly 2 years. After all, she hadn't made any interactions that she was coming back. She heads to the throne room where her gifts were telling her Zeus was. There wasn't a council meeting. So why would he be in the throne room? Lady Dalia gets to the doors and like Cusco from the Emperor's New Grove throws them open in a dramatic fashion. Making Zeus jump out of whatever deep thought he was in. Hello why lord, Lady Dalia says innocently bowing to the king of the gods. Dalia, Zeus scowls and glares at her for making him jump. Lady Dalia rolls her eyes at his act. He wasn't nearly as mad as he pretended to be. Don't give me that look. I know you're not really mad at me and you are actually happy to see your chief advisor back on Olympus, Lady Dalia says, gliding forward and the doors closing behind her. Why would you say that? Zeus asks. Dalia chooses to ignore that question. What has you in such deep thoughts, my king and uncle? Lady Dalia asks, sitting in her throne at the right of Zeus. The chair for the chief advisor to the Olympian Council. You know you don't have to pretend with me, Dalia adds. Zeus sighs. He knew what she spoke of was true. Any conversation between them was confidential. Even from her own husband. Her titles of Fate Controller and Advisor made Dalia have an honor code. I have started to see what my paranoia has cost me, Zeus admits. Dalia raises an eyebrow. She had seen this coming. And she was glad that she was always right. But she had also saw what would happen if he didn't see what his paranoia was costing him. I have to admit, Zeus, I have seen two paths with you. One incredibly dark that would lead you to a similar fate to your father or controlling the world. The other was a path of happiness and prosperity throughout your domains and the domains of your siblings and children, Dalia replies. Zeus was surprised as this. Would he really have gotten as bad as his father? The thought of it just made him cringe. So what do I do about it? Zeus asks her. I can't give you the answers to everything. But I will lead you my advice as always. You need to start listening, Dalia says softly. Listening? Zeus questions, confused. When was the last time you heard the complaints and difficulties of your brothers, of some of the other immortals that don't have a place on this esteemed council? When was the last time you listened to the voices of the demigods and natural spirits? Dalia points out. Zeus had to admit it had been a long time. And he was never one to listen to his brother's problems or the problems of the demigods. Do you know your brother Hades, my father, is overworked in the underworld? Did you know he still is feuding with Demeter over something that should have been resolved centuries ago? As it is, Persephone actually wanted to stay in the underworld not just because she loved Hades but also to get ways from this family drama up here. She ate those pomegranates willingly, Dalia starts. Zeus' eyes widen. He didn't know that. Do you know Poseidon had a consent war going on with Oceanus? Did you know Hestia feels lonely because nobody takes the time to notice her or even sit down to eat with her? Did you know your own wife suffers because she thinks you no longer love her or appreciates the work she does do? Did you know how overworked Hermes is with all his domains and being the messenger and mailman for such simple things? Do you know of Apollo's nightmares from the time he was human, or the time you refused him to give aid to his twin that was captured, or Artemis' nightmares of that time and Zoe dying, or the fact she blames Apollo for some of it, or that they hate not being able to spend time with their mother because someone hasn't kept his word to release the peaceful titans? Dalia continues. Zeus' eyes widen more. Had he actually hurt the twin archers, and did he really forget to release Leto? Do you know how crowded the cabins are at Camp Halfblood? Or the rifts that are still in place between Camp Halfblood and Camp Jupiter? Did you know Athena's Roman counterpart, Minerva, is still seen as a lesser goddess in New Rome? Did you know that my husband Dionysus is suffering from lack of contact with me and his family, so much so he takes it out on the demigods who end up resenting him or not respecting him? Do you know Hephaestus is still rebuilding his Mount Helen's workshop? Or about how New Rome was attacked so severely that there is major damage done to the structure of the city and certain areas are unsafe and people have been displaced to be sleeping on the fields of Mars in tents? Dalia continues. Zeus wondered how he could not have known the city he was patron of was damaged so much. Or that Jason Grace's wishes haven't been fully met yet, and that his idea will stop a full-out war that we might not be able to win. Dalia continues. Zeus' eyes again widen. Had he nearly cost his family so many lives? Did you know the satyr numbers are down? And did you know the satyrs are overworked between finding demigods and preserving the natural wildlife and forests? Do you know of the rivalry between Juno's Amazons and the hunters of Artemis? Did you know that both those forces, that we depend on so much, are nearly wiped out, so much so that Juno and Artemis have lost some of their power? Lady Dalia goes on stating the problems. Zeus' eyes widen. When did things get this bad? How did he let it come to this? Oh gods above, Zeus mutters, feeling utterly dreadful. He never realized he had screwed up so badly. You have nearly cost us so much, Dalia says harshly. Sometimes people just needed a reality check before things become unfixable. Lucky she had come back when she did. Zeus truly looked like he had gotten the message. That he finally understood that instead of giving in to paranoia and greed, he needed to give out compassion, understanding, and be willing to help his family when they were going through a rough patch. Dalia sighs, seeing that Zeus had finally got it and the paths, destinies and fates were changing around him. It is not too late, my lord and king, Dalia says softly, placing a hand on his shoulder. It's not, Zeus asks with a new look in his eyes. No, it's not, Dalia says smiling, everything can be changed in time. And the paths, destinies and fates are not always set in stone. I have seen many things, my lord. The good, the bad and the ugly. But you want to know what I have always seen in visions. What, Zeus asks. Hope. Hope burns in the fires of all of us. And now hope is starting to spread into you. Let it change you for the better and lean on those of us you should call family. And most importantly, let them lean on you. Dalia exclaims. Zeus now had a new light in his eyes. Dalia, I want a council meeting called for tomorrow at 10 a.m., Zeus says with new determination in his eyes and voice. I will set one at once, Dalia replies with a smile. Oh, and see me 2 hours before it, please, Zeus adds. I will be there, Dalia replies, getting up to leave. Oh, and Dal, niece, Zeus calls. Dalia turns to him. Yes, my lord. Call me uncle, and why don't you go and visit that husband of yours to tell him about that meeting tomorrow in person, Zeus suggests. Dalia beams at him. Thank you, uncle. I am glad the paths are clearing. She bows before him and leaves him to his work. He had much to catch up on before tomorrow's meeting, and she had given him a lot of information for a head start. Now she had sorted out Zeus and him now going down the path which would lead Olympus and everyone else into greatness and prosperity. She had something more important to do. See her husband, and maybe she could improve this day and last 2 years for both of them even more. Edward had arrived back in Forks and had seen Charlie. But Charlie had said the same thing. Bella had decided to go traveling for a while before she settled down. Jasper had said there was something weird about Charlie's emotions. But Edward couldn't tell what Charlie was thinking. He had never been able to really read Charlie's mind, but he got enough. Now he was just like Bella to him. Which was so frustrating. Now he couldn't believe it, but he was going to seek help from the Mutts. His family and himself were now at the treaty line waiting on the pack. Where the hell are they? Edward growls. Didn't they get the fact this is important? Edward, calm down. We will find her, Jasper orders him, trying to send everyone a bit of calm. Alice, have you seen anything yet? Edward asks impatiently. You won't be the second to know, Edward, if I saw anything, Alice says, frustrated that she really couldn't see Bella at all now. Anything from your contacts at the hospital, Carlisle? Edward asks. No, Edward, Carlisle says with a sigh, she hasn't been checked into any hospitals in the area. What is the use of having you all then? Edward growls. Edward, watch your mouth. We are all worried about Bella too. So check your attitude, Esme scolds him. Yes, Esme, Edward grumbles. I bet the little human just couldn't take the pressure of commitment and responsibility. She probably never cared about you at all, Rosalie states. I told you she was a gold digger and not worth our time. Rosalie was looking very smug. Rosy enough, Emmett mutters, you might not like Bella. But the rest of us do. Suddenly they hear howls and the wolves step out of the forest growling. What do you want, bloodsuckers? Sam thinks. Can you all turn into human form? This is important, Carlisle asks. The wolves were reluctant to do it. But finally Sam, Jacob, Jard, Embry and Quill turn back into human form. What is it? Sam asks. Where is Bella? Jacob asks. Bella has been kidnapped, Edward says. What? Jacob yells. Edward is exaggerating. Charlie has told us she has gone traveling. Alone, Carlisle says, sighing at Edward's over-exaggeration. What? Oh, this was going to be such a productive meeting. Between Edward and Jacob, how could they get anything down? Dalia flashes to the border of Camp Halfblood and scratches Festus' head. Who had been fixed by Leo. He was truly one of the most gifted of Hephaestus' children. Besides from Beckendorf. She walks up the hill and looks down on the camp. It had been 2 years since she had been here and seen her husband in the Titan War briefly, and now, she could finally see him again for longer than she had in 50 years. She does hope her husband hasn't been too hard on the children. He always got that way during punishments if he was separated from her for too long. Many gods didn't want to be parted from their spouse for long. You might think because gods have affairs they don't truly love their spouses. But they did. Immortal love was infinite, but mortal love was fleeting. Dalia sees the demigods' eyes widen when they see her. Many recognized her, others didn't, but the older ones were quickly filling them in. Dalia gives them all warm smiles. She was not one to frighten them unless she was pissed off. She thought she heard shouting and sighed, recognizing her husband's voice with Chiron's calming one and 2 others she didn't know. Well, this was starting out well. She follows the sound to find her husband yelling at a couple of kids about switching all his Diet Coke out with water. Chiron was trying to resolve that situation. He was facing her while Dionysus' back was to her. This would work. Chiron sees her and his eyes widen. But Dalia puts her fingers to her lips to tell him to remain silent. She frowns watching her husband. No matter how frustrating this situation was, he shouldn't be taking it out on the children. They had tough enough lives as it is. Dalia gets up behind her. She was shorter than him. But that had never stopped her from putting him in his place. How dare you ever think, I am a god and I will turn the pair of your into ducks if you, Dionysus yelps as a firmly hand smacks him in the back of his head. Hard, he spins around ready to rip into the new person who dared strike him, and his eyes widen to see his wife looking at him unimpressed with her arms crossed. He winces at that look. How was he meant to know she would turn up? She hated it when he acted like this, and he could expect a lecture and properly no sex. Her visits were normally enjoyable, but when he did something wrong, well, it didn't go well for him. And because it has been 10.5 years since her last visit, except for the Titan War, he didn't want it to start off like this. But in his defense, she didn't tell him. Hello honey, he says nervously, you didn't tell me you were coming. Much to everyone's shock, that is the meaning of the word surprise, dear, she retorts. He winces at her tone. Dalia turns to the kids. Run along, there will be no consequences for you, she tells the two young twins of Hermes, with a soft smile. They look relieved and quickly dash off. Dalia turns her attention back to her nervous-looking husband. She walks towards him and he does to talk, but she kisses him. He tasted like grapes still. Something she loved. She felt him relax into the kiss, and they both push all their missing years into this kiss. Dalia pulls away breathlessly and they both looked at each other in longing. Dionysus wanted to take her into his arms. She had other ideas. She had forgotten what she walked up to. So, she smirks and reaches up like she was going to run her fingers through his hair. Dionysus was expecting that when he yelps as she twists his ear and starts walking, leaving him no other choice but to follow. Doll, let me go, Dionysus yelps, what is this for? He yelps again as she twists it again and pulls him into the big house and shuts and locks the door to the snickering and amused children. Especially her own. She pushes him into his seat and puts her hands on her hips as he was rubbing his ear. Did you have to? Dionysus asks her, scowling at her. Gods to Dionysus, she looked beautiful wearing one of his favorite dresses on her. Her hair styled half up and down, with items of jewelry that he had given her. This had obviously had meant to be a streamy reunion, and he could now believe he had ruined it. Yes, I did. You haven't learned to not terrorize children. How old are you? 5. These children don't have the best home lives and you are making their time here in this safe haven worse. What are you thinking? It was a joke and you can always get more, she scolds him, act your age. You deserved my reaction then, and you deserved this punishment. But instead of taking this punishment like a man, you take it as a child. He had never enjoyed his wife's lectures. She had a way of making you feel like you were a 5-year-old child being scolded by your mother. He had even seen her manage to do it to her father, Poseidon, Ares, and even her father Hades. He didn't know if she was able to do that to her second father, as he had never seen the two together. Honey, I am sorry, it is just. She sighs a disappointed sigh which again made him wince. He didn't like disappointing her either. What am I going to go with you? Dalia asks him. She knew what she had been doing, scolding him like that. Like she had done with Zeus and then making him feel bad for disappointing her. These were her two favorite ways of getting a message across without much violence. Please, I am sorry, Leah. As I have just missed you and couldn't understand why you had even stopped writing me 2 years ago. And I only got to talk to you for a few minutes during the Titan War and at council meeting, but nothing the last 2 years, and it has made me lonely, he admits. I am isolated down here and only allowed on Olympus on council meeting and only then. And these kids don't know what it is like to be separated from all of that. But they also really want the relationships with their immortal parents that some of them do with their mortal one, Dalia replies gently, and those that don't have good home lives, they hope that their immortal parent will love them a way they had never known. Both sides have their reasons for everything they do. But my love, you need to accept the past and move forward, she cups his face gently. He leans into her touch. I know, but still, he sighs, I have missed you, holding out his arms hoping. Dalia smiles and lets him pull her into his lap. His face nuzzles her hair and she snuggles into him. She had missed this. She had missed her. She missed feeling truly loved. And made to feel like she was a strong, independent woman who was an equal in the relationship. He had missed her unique smell of what he calls the world. I smell the world on you. I see the cosmos in your eyes. I feel the strength in your being, he murmurs in her ear. I feel the goodness in your heart, she replies softly, completely relaxed. My Leah, my heart, why are you so tense, he asks her, planting kisses on her head and the back of her neck, making her shiver. She sighs, the reason I haven't contacted you in so long is because I was on one of my checking trips. Dionysus frowns, it is never that long. This was a large coven of 7 vampires with a wolf shapeshifter pack next door. So, you can see why it took some time, Dalia replies. She looks up at him with love and relief in her eyes and pecks his lips. I missed this feeling, she adds. What feeling, he asks her. I had to date the youngest male because I needed to get close to them. This is a coven made up of animal drinkers. The parents Carlisle and Esme, 2 mated pairs being Rosalie and Emmett, the other is Alice and Jasper. And the only single one, Edward. She tells her story, letting her frustration at the coven out. Dionysus listens patiently and tightens his hold on her for some bits. He hated to hear how the coven treated her. She was anything but fragile, and to even treat a normal human like that was an insult. Hasn't this vampire moved on from the 20s? This was the 21st century and he would never find a woman that acted that way. If you tried, they would be more likely to slap you. And his stalking tendencies were disgusted, and his need to control who she couldn't see was appalling. He is shocked his wife didn't break cover and slap the boy for his treatment of her and women in general. And that Alice he didn't like the sound of either. Just as controlling as the bastard. Who forces people to wear things they don't? How can someone control someone like that? If it is their husband mate, he would never treat his Dalia like that, and he knew she wouldn't treat him like that. Sure, they had their fights, but who doesn't? It was part of a healthy relationship. He wished he could teach them a lesson, and those wolves were nearly as bad. That Jacob Black needed a reality check. Dionysus lets his wife rant, knowing she needed to get rid of 2 years of stress from her being. At least she was here now and away from them. She sags against him tiredly after getting all her feelings out. It felt so good, and how patient her husband was being was one of the many reasons she loved him. Even with his lack of judgment at times. She buries her head in his chest, smelling the grapes. I know what can take you mind off them, he whispers huskily. Really now, and what would that be? She whispers just as huskily. He smirks, his purple eyes twinkling happily. Oh, it would be, he gasps when he feels her hand on him. He looks at her innocent look and wasn't buying that. 2 can play at that game, my heart. Hope you all liked the video. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you in the next video. Until then, goodbye. The end.